how we do step flashing here on these chimneys and walls. In this situation, we're using custom vent flashing, and we made them out of copper, out of sheets of copper, and then we bend it. Come over here and check this out. So each one of these shingles needs a step flashing, and a step flashing is basically, hold on a second, I'll show you. This is a piece of step flashing, and in these, what did you make these? Do you remember? What's the size of these?
3 by 3.
Okay, so we got 3 inches here, 3 inches here by, what's the height? 8 or 9?
8.
So because these shingles are dimensional shingles, we want to make sure each shingle gets one of these each piece of shingle gets one of these step flashings. We want to make sure that it has enough head lap here that the next one covers it at least 2-3 inches. So that's why they're 8 inches high. And we want enough on the roof so that we can protect against water infiltrating the sides, and we needed enough up the wall, which is why we have 3 and 3, 3 on the roof, 3 up the wall, 8 inches high, so that we have the right head lap for the next piece to go on. I'll show you. Hold on. So when I say head lap, this would be the head lap right here. So we want that, so water runs down the wall and it runs onto each one of these pieces, and instead of going in the house at this point, it just deflects back onto the next piece of shingle, next shingle, next shingle, until it comes out on the bottom end of the wall. So these are step flashings, and we use aluminum step flashings sometimes we're using copper. In this job, the client decided that they wanted to use copper on all the counter flashings. So we have to use copper step flashings and then copper counter flashings to go over top, because aluminum, if we just use copper counter flashings and we use aluminum step flashings, the copper will eventually rot out and create holes in the step flashing, which will let water in over time. It takes a while for it to happen, but the chemical reaction between copper and aluminum, they can't touch. So we use copper counter flashing and copper step flashing in this case to make sure that long term this stuff lasts forever. And then there's a certain way you got to nail these things. So each shingle gets one of these step flashings, and I'll show you. You can see we align this bottom part of the step flashing with the very top of the keyways or the exposure of the shingle, and then there's no nails, so I can actually lift this up and you won't see any nails under there, and you can see where this head lap is, and that's by design. You don't want any nails lower in here, you don't want nails in here, and you don't want nails anywhere in this area here or in the step flashing, because water can roll in, and if, let's say it rolls in, and it'll roll and hit that nail if you put a nail down here. So you don't want nails down here at all. Each shingle gets one of these, but this is where you're going to nail it. Say this is the wall and you got a shingle under it, you're going to nail in this top corner, and then that next piece will overlap that nail. So let's say you have a nail here, it's going to overlap that nail, so that water can never get to this nail because it's so high up here. It'd have to be like a major ice dam or some type of problem where the ice would push up in here, and that's when you have ice shields. So let me talk about that. You can see this stuff rolling up here is the ice shield, and so we put a piece of ice shield about here, and it rolls up the wall, and that's just in case ice were to happen here where it would try to push up and get to that kind of nail. It also helps to seal around all the nail heads that go in this area, which is like the critical area that you don't want water to come in, where a wall meets a shingle roof. And so that's the step flashing, and that's why it's super important to have the right height step flashings, to nail them correctly, and to put the shingles in, and align them correctly with the bottom of the shingle. And every one of these shingles needs to have a step flashing. And if you do all that, this will be watertight. I can show you this wall, similar thing. And you can see the head lap. You've got the ice shield. You've got the head laps. You've got them nailed correctly so that they're loose. They pull up in the air. And then one other crucial thing that you don't want to ever do is nail the step flashing here to the wall. The problem with doing that, especially on little dormers or even separations between these buildings, like this is a drop down wall. If you nail it to this wall and this building moves independently of this building a little bit, you're now going to have this lift up in the air. And now you've got the ability or the problem of wind and rain getting in here. You also got the problem where water will run and curl underneath and go back underneath here. You don't want any of this. That's why you don't nail to a wall, because if this goes down or this wall goes up, this is going to lift up in the air, and that's a problem. Either way this goes, if it goes down or this wall goes up. So don't ever do that. Don't ever nail these to the wall. You can avoid it. Sometimes you have to, but just be very sure that these buildings won't move independently of each other. And then these just run every shingle. You can see right at the bottom, right at the bottom, right at the bottom. Each one of these is just right at the bottom of that exposure line, or above the top of the exposure line, and the ice shield.